Week 7 USFL power rankings following Week 6. To nobody's surprise, at number 1 is the Birmingham Stallions, who are the only undefeated team in the USFL. They are 6-0, and they were able to get a win against the Michigan Panthers despite not having linebacker Scooby Wright, losing linebacker Brady Buck, and also losing linebacker Nate Holley. Didn't seem to be much of a problem for them, as they also played without CJ Marable on offense, which is one of the reasons why we saw a lot of Bo Scarborough in this game. And again, despite substandard play by Jamar Smith, I think he'd be the first person to admit that. I think he was something like 12 of 25 for 140, just wasn't really that great. They still were able to go get a win. And that's really been the story with the Birmingham Stallions. They just find ways to beat their opponents at the end, whether it's putting together long drives to finish off games, or whether it's getting timely quarterback play from guys like Jamar Smith or even Alex Magoo, who had an outstanding 3rd and 26 play where he just threw it for 40 yards downfield, and they were able to really ice the game against the Michigan Panthers. I'm really interested to see if they can keep this up as we are into the final few weeks of this inaugural USFL season. Number 2 on the list, the New Jersey Generals. That's Mike Riley's Generals that are riding high after a 5-game winning streak, right? Which is really kind of outstanding given what they've been up against. Their only loss, of course, is to the Birmingham Stallions, and we've seen them play with both quarterbacks in all but one game. They needed to do it again for their win yesterday, as they really didn't look terrible, but also didn't look like they're firing on all cylinders. But they still had some outstanding play. We saw a couple of trick plays. We saw Kavontae Turpin go off, and they've been getting some great defense against really what I thought was a pretty doggone good football team. Now, I also think that it's interesting that the Stallions, have put together a 10-minute plus drive, right, to finish off the Philadelphia Stars in Week 5. The Breakers put together an 18-play drive for 94 yards. We'll talk about them a little bit later. But the Generals were able to put together a 23-play, 95-yard drive for their win yesterday. That means they took up the entire third quarter just going down the field to go score. That's pretty outstanding. That's pretty remarkable. Number 3 on the list, New Orleans Breakers. Now, we could have some discussions about why or how, but they looked like they got back on the good foot against the Pittsburgh Maulers. Anthony Jones was a revelation for the Breakers. He really carried the load for them at tailback. This is a man who was not a member of the Breakers until earlier this month with the injury to former North Carolina tailback TJ Logan. They had a roster spot. He filled it coming out of Florida International. He had over 100 yards rushing on the ground, and they needed to have that with Jordan Ellis still not really being the dude that we thought he would be going into this week, but still leading the USFL in rushing yards as it is. Gerard Fernandez, who was on my midseason all-star team for the USFL, played like one, made 11 tackles to lead the New Orleans Breakers against, over, I should say, the Pittsburgh Maulers on Sunday. I also would add in there that Kyle Sloter did not play his best, and they were still able to get a win. You're going to take that if you're Larry Fedora. Number 4 on the list, the Philadelphia Stars. Now, star linebacker Jordan Moore decided to show everybody what SEC speed actually means with the game on the line. So it looked as if the Tampa Bay Bandits might find a way to, at the very least, tie the game at the end of regulation, if not go for 2 in the win, when I saw Jordan Tamu, who played one heck of a game, toss pass to Rashard Davis. Rashard Davis went flying downfield, and it felt like Jordan Moore came from off the screen to run him down and drag him down inside the 10-yard line, which really ended up being the play of the game for me. And the reason I say SEC speed for Jordan Moore is he didn't just win the Big 12 outdoor championships in the 110 meter hurdles. He transferred to LSU and won the SEC 110 meter hurdles outdoor championship. This is an outside linebacker that can fly. You've heard me talk about Jordan a couple of times here on the Number One Ranked show, and that is also indicative of the kind of talent that is all throughout this league. You could find a 110 meter hurdle champion 4 times over and an All-American playing linebacker for the Philadelphia Stars. Outstanding. Also outstanding, running back Matt Colburn rushed for 140 yards. This is huge for the Stars, who don't usually depend on their run game to move the football. As a matter of fact, they averaged just 65 yards a game rushing going into their win. And then we had Matt Colburn coming out with Paul Terry not being able to go for that 140. That is the third highest rushing tally by anyone in the league so far this season. It's really great for them to be able to continue to push for this playoff spot, and that's what they're after, being one of the two teams in the North Division to earn a playoff spot. Number 5 on the list, the Tampa Bay Bandits. I mentioned Jordan Ta'amu played an outstanding game, and he did. He went for over 300 yards passing. He grew into the game as the game went on. What ended up dooming the Bandits in their loss is they just turned the ball over. You can't throw interceptions. You can't fumble the ball on the handoff. You can't put the ball on the floor and expect to win football games. But they had a chance there at the end, and it looked like had they been able to score from the 5-yard line, that they might have gone for 2 rather than kick or go for the onside kick to perhaps win in regulation or even get us to overtime, which would have been fun because we haven't seen the overtime rules go into effect in this game. As a matter of fact, we've only seen 1 4th and 12 attempt that ended up working. That was Tampa Bay Bandits in this game against the Stars, which is kind of cool because the Stars are the first team in professional football history to go for a 3-point conversion and get it. I really enjoyed watching that game on Saturday. Number 6 on the list, I'm going to put the Michigan Panthers here. I'm going to put them there because it looked like they found who they are. Even as Reggie Corbin, their star running back, was not himself. Shea Patterson acquitted himself well, going for over 200 yards passing. The defense was fine to good. I'm sure Jeff Fisher's kicking himself because having just 1 win through 6 weeks would do that to anybody. But I also think that it's interesting in that they had a chance to beat the Stallions from where I'm sitting if Fisher elected to go for a 3-point conversion as opposed to a extra point conversion on their last touchdown, because you would have been able to tie the game up at 19 and then perhaps force the Stallions to make a mistake, because I'm of the opinion that the more pressure I can put on my opponent, the more likely they are to break, right? I'm counting on you to not beat yourself. So put the Stallions in a position to where they have to beat themselves. That was my one note. But outside of that, the Panthers have been a good football team, and they've been in every game, it seems, at least by halftime. Never been blown out in a game. It's the thing I can say about most of the teams in this league. Number 7 on the list, the Pittsburgh Maulers. The Maulers couldn't find an answer for the Breakers running game headlined by Anthony Jones, but they could find an answer for Kyle Sloter, which is interesting. Sloter is the league's leading passer, but he went for just 92 passing yards on 21 pass attempts against the Pittsburgh Maulers. The defense has been a strength of that team from the jump. They got some offense out of Vad Lee or out of Madre London, Garrett Groshek, and they got a bit. They've got outstanding wide receivers in Trey Walker and Bailey Gaither, among others. It just didn't come together for them at the end. They're going to try to get their second win later this week in week 7. And finally, the Houston Gamblers occupy the 8th spot this week. This is a normally opportunistic defense that's been great at creating turnovers that just wasn't able to flex their might against the New Jersey Generals in this game. Clayton Thorson threw 3 TDs, but the rushing attack had just 57 yards on 19 carries. And what I think is their best player, Mark Thompson, on offense, only had 23 rushing yards on 11 rushes. That's got to be better. Donald Payne, though, linebacker for the Gamblers, continues to be perhaps the best linebacker in this league. He had 18 tackles in this game, and he's got 76 this season through 6 weeks. For perspective here, Donald Payne has more tackles than the leading scorer in the league. That'd be his own teammate, Clayton Thorson, with 66 points. So 76 tackles versus 66 points. You can see just what Donald Payne has meant to Tim Lewis and the Houston Gamblers defense. Thanks for watching this video. And remember, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other videos on the #1 ranked show YouTube channel.